You got it.
I'm gonna do that. Although there's only the 3 people, so if this isn't in the way, we can leave it. If not, we can make it smaller. I don't know if he's paying attention to the chat. Okay, well, we'll hope for the best. I'll text him. So. We should flip it. It's on. It should be on, although. Yeah, it's on.
That's me. Okay, we are going to move forward. Starting with announcements. Anne Marie, would you like to give your message concerning the survey? You are very welcome to do so.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Thank you, President Ray. Good afternoon, everybody. I passed out, if somebody came in after doing so, I'll get to you, but you have a survey in front of you, and it's probably already been observed from those of you who come frequently that our attendance has declined since COVID. But I would also say that just Rotary in general, meeting attendance over a long period of time has changed. And that's been acknowledged, you know, nationally, internationally, by allowing a lot of changes in how we format and structure meetings. Meeting attendance requirements, all of those things have changed significantly over the last several years. So this is the start of a process, and we will be looking through the year, and we will more than likely be making changes to our meeting structure that we would be going forth with in the next Rotary year. Nothing will change probably this year. But we really need, of course, for Rotarians, it's not an option not to give honest feedback. And that to me would include, we need your feedback. We need you to absolutely fill out the survey and do it with, you know, your best information, choices that you want us to know about. This is really the time that we need it. You can fill these out and hand them back to me. We will also be sending the survey out by email for members who are not with us. I think one of the fundamental shifts that's happened, and a lot of you are probably aware of this in your workplace, is that we've had a lot of people, and I think it's a wonderful thing, who've been able to move to remote work and or at least hybrid work. And by observation, I know that Friday tends to be a day that a lot of people are staying home. and they're not coming into the office, therefore they're not downtown, they're not in Flint, they're not in the workplace. So we're looking at everything, day of the week, time of day, how many meetings in a month. Do we alternate these with social or service gatherings, which are all also allowed to be included as a regular Rotary meeting? So there's a lot of questions. We don't have any answers because we really, really just need to hear from you. So please, please complete the survey. Thank you.
Thank you. Rotarian Leadership Institute.
Yeah, go blue.
President Elizabeth left a message regarding the institute. She said, "I want to share with you a newly announced Rotary Leadership Institute training opportunity. This module is open to any Rotarians and slots are available on a first come, first served basis. It will be conducted by Zoom over 2 Fridays, November 21st and 28th from 6:30 till 9:30 p.m. The Institute helps Rotarians get ready to take on club leadership roles, as well as develop skills that are applicable to a variety of professional and volunteer settings. So if you are wanting to serve on or lead a committee, are on the board, or would like to be, or just want to learn more about Rotary and leadership, please consider signing up. The cost is only $16, and the club can cover the cost for a few of our members to attend. Please register by emailing past District Governor Diane Chandler at dianechandler@hotmail.com. And I'll see if I can get that up on the screen a little bit later. Okay, next we have Flint Firebird outing with Fred Hines. Fred, where are you? There you are. No time to eat. We want to hear about the Firebirds.
Firebirds, you're getting it organized, depending on the amount of people from the other clubs. Get out the best break, get 50 people. Here comes the Firebird game. I'm gonna stop by their office this week, so we can find out what information I need to get it. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so it's in the organization stage.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Thank you. On November 11th at 7:30 a.m., the Fenton Rotary Club will host a Veterans Day breakfast at the Fenton Community Center. Please RSVP if you plan to attend. The cost is $10 for non-veterans. And now we've got Rob's Bureau.
Ready, Dominic?
Oh.
This is about the football game.
As is our tradition, there's something called the game tomorrow. And it's only appropriate that we, as good Rotarians, following the 4-way test, allow them the opportunity to come into the big house, but not to win a game. Okay,
We'll try.
we'll try. So we've decided to do a little tailgating, brief fight song,
Let's do
verse
it.
or two. So we're gonna have you flip a coin, Dr. Ray. All right, we can't decide which is heads or tails, but I figure since you're coming to the big house, we're gonna allow you the opportunity to choose which side would be,
We'll take it.
okay.
So that's the other Spartans in the room. Are there any other Spartans in the room? Maybe one other Spartan? We want heads or tails? And take heads.
All right, tails, go for it.
It's a tail.
It's a tail.
Tail.
So without any further ado, let's welcome to the big house. Yes, the Spartans.
All right. Well, I think we're outnumbered, but those of us that know it, let's give a big round. Go right through for MSU. Watch the points keep throwing. Spartan teams are bound to win. We're fighting with a vim. Rah, rah, rah. See, their team is weak. We're gonna win this game. Fight, fight, raw team fight. Victory for MSU.
Round of applause for the Spartans.
You might be small but mighty here in the Rotary Club.
All right, you ready? Ready. Hail to the victors valiant.
Hail to the conquering heroes.
Hail, hail.
Michigan, the
Leaders
leaders
and
and
the
the
best.
best.
Hail to the conquering heroes. Heroes, hail, hail to Michigan, the leaders of the West. All right, let's hear it for the Spartans and the Wolverines.
Let's just hope you all don't fumble like you didn't have my gun.
Those of you who didn't hear it, I just wanted to make sure we don't fumble again, okay? And as I shared the last time I was up here, we were honored to have the Spartans come to the big house and know what the experience was like to win in the big house and allowing you to do. Right.
Are there guests to be welcome on Zoom or right here, right now? Members on, okay. And Fred, oh, I'm sorry.
Robert Simpson. Here.
Okay, all right, let's welcome around. Anyone else? Okay, health and welfare. How are our Rotarians doing health wise? Are there any reports as far as updates or anything new that is regarding health or okay, and now 50-50, Fred, you're up again.
You know, President, I don't understand with these other schools that these guys keep cheering about, you know. I guess we can't get to the best school. There's all this. You know. So are you talking about Kalamazoo? And I follow a Kalamazoo who's up there too. Kalamazoo who's up there too. Now, President Ray, and I think your drawing was crooked. You're a Michigan graduate, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Still an election, I'm sure. Now I need an honest person. Paul, are you honest?
I practice politics, you know that.
Good, you're my man. Come on. Would you please insist? I insist. Carefully stir the pot. All right. We have
84156.
84156. Do you have a one?
Somebody should.
Check mine.
check yours.
All right, did you win here?
Get it? Did you get it?
I will give you.
Henry?
that.
Okay. And
All right, question number 2.
Number 2. 84186.
Right here.
Oh, yeah. And now for the big one, fame, fortune, and a gallon of gasoline.
Okay, right. 84220. 84220.
Go fight. Congratulations. Thank you.
okay, we got our prize winners.
I will get that.
Thank you, sir.
I'll keep your money.
And we're looking for Amy Cruz for birthday announcements.
Hello there. So it is my pleasure as an October birthday myself to invite forward. Oops, I forgot my daughter. My fellow birthday month folks. So as I say your name, please come up and help yourself with some candy. So on the best birthday day, October 5th, we have Richard Gibbs. And also my birthday, October 5th. John Lehman is October 5th. Woo, John, you gonna come up? Come on, John, you come up front so you can, you better come forward so we can sing to you. Don't make me stand up here by myself, John. Jack Coleman. I think I saw, is Jack on? Hi, Jack, happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy birthday to you.
Franklin is also on the 6th. Steve Jadwin is on the 7th. Don Lotta is on the 14th.
Candy?
You can candy, yeah. Take your candy. Yeah, you can,
Let's see.
yes.
Thank you.
All right. Joe Fioroni. John's now wants to say that. Gary Moran is on the 26th. Gene Dennis on the 28th. And our Kyle McCready is on the 30th. So if you join me in singing happy birthday to me and my fellow Rotarian. So
Happy birthday
To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you.
Wow. Good to be back again.
Back for a good thing.
Introduce our illustrious, dedicated, honest speaker.
Right, and to borrow the four-way test. I'm gonna do this as a Rotarian presentation, not a go. I can change the time now, that'll take you long. Please. Please. Stay on. All right. Well, we're back. Episode 2 of the Rotary Club of Flint 2022 general election presentations. But before I start, I want to give a special kudo and shout out to Jerry Hill back there. Jerry is our October program coordinator, and during our election years, always makes an opportunity to make sure we have time for a little bit of updates and insights. The campaigning is in high gear. Days to go to Tuesday, November the 8th, to make your decision on candidates and ballot proposals, the issues, the candidates, and the proposals. And we're honored to welcome back again the esteemed area professional, commentator, and pundit Paul Ruzicki. Last week, he made an overview of the midterm elections. Today, we'll focus on the Flint municipal elections, a little bit about Mock Community College, the Flint Board of Education, Flint mayoral race, ballot proposal, and he said he might be able to slip in a little bit about those state races. So for those of you who are not familiar with Paul, how many of you here are not familiar with Paul? Okay, that eliminates the introduction part. And is Dawn or Lynette here? No. Okay, we don't have to do the spiel about Mock Community College. But we can. It's a great, outstanding institution, not to be confused with the other academic institution. He was originally a journalist, as you know, political science professor. Just want to highlight the fact he's an author, photographer, political memorabilia collector. So again, join me in a warm Rotarian welcome for the return of the Paul Rizicki.
Well, a double header, I guess, this year with the elections going on the way they are, and that may be justified considering all the material. We didn't quite finish up last week, so I think what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to do the local stuff, the mayor's race, brief mention of county commission, proposals, and the school board stuff. And then if we have time, I'll go back and pick up a few quick commentaries on the area, state house, state senate, things and that sort. So be a few odds and ends. And again, as usual, anywhere along the way, feel free to interrupt with questions or comments and so forth along the way. So like I said, we're primarily local stuff this time, but as time permits, maybe go beyond that as well. Let me start off first of all with the mayor's race. This mayor's race we have is the first one, the first full term, really under the new city charter. For a full 4-year term in conjunction with the gubernatorial race. Sheldon Neely and Karen Weaver are going at each other, a rematch really last time around. And the significance is that no matter how you cut it, it's going to have to be a close race. Neely won the last time by 205 votes. Very close election race all the way around. And I suppose I'm going to take a quick look at, some reasons why Neely could win, a few reasons why Weaver could win, and maybe a few will take on that. I see no, to be honest, I see no concrete polls yet. I've heard a few candidates give me their polls, but I take those with a grain of salt, but I've never seen any concrete polls that I can rely on as to where the actual race stands. But I'm guessing really it's going to be a very competitive race. I think Neely does have, on one hand, the advantage of incumbency. He can take action, he can appear at public events, offer resolutions of one kind or another. Any incumbent's got that advantage. That certainly has worked to his advantage, I think, in the last couple of months in some ways. The big issues, I think, for the city, it depends how you look at it, is still the water issue is still there. It's faded a bit, but it's still there. The legal machinery is clanking along about whether or not there are going to be charges in the water issue as well. A few more last bit of the pipes to be repaired, still not quite done yet. But water is, I think, one of the top issues. Second is crime. Clearly, crime in many ways around the nation, although it's dropped a bit. Somewhat the same in Flint, dropped a bit here too, but crime still is a significant issue. And economic developments. Obviously, the city of Flint, we've lost 120,000 people in the last few decades. Economic development is key, and there have been a few announcements recently about some possibilities there as well. So let me just touch upon a couple of quick things. On one hand, why Neely could hang on to his job. First of all, crime is down. I think I saw some numbers on the murder rate, but ours, the Flint murder rate, was not that much worse than Saginaw. It's a notably smaller city. So if those hold true, that's one positive sign he can tout. And I think I've seen some billboards around town saying that very thing for Neely. Secondly, the ARPA funds appear to finally come through the city council after much struggle there. It's often the case with the city council, but that too can be a plus if those finally come to fruition in some ways. As an incumbent, you can do all kind of public appearances for almost any public event. That's an easier way to do some campaigning. They may be more valid and powerful than the traditional kind of campaign flyers you got. One interesting thing that I think might help Sheldon Neely is that Cynthia Neely is running for the State House and includes nearly all or a good bit of the city of Flint. And given the Democratic leaning of the city of Flint, she's almost certain to win. And I kind of wonder whether this could be a case where Cynthia Neely could end up helping Sheldon. People may decide to vote for Cynthia and say, well, buy one, get one free kind of a deal. And it may actually pull a few votes over the hill. When I drive around town and look at signs for Neely, I have to take a second look to see which one is for Cynthia, which one is for Sheldon. So maybe it'll help them. I don't know for sure if it'll play out that way, but I can see a possibility where her very likely success in her race may lap over just enough to give him a bit of an edge in some ways. There has been some economic development, a few announcements about some potential development in the city that are a big plus for him. Also has developed recently a significant anti-blight campaign, some new funds for that. I think some ARPA funds there, I believe. And all things considered, a very visible campaign compared to, I think if I had to compare the two campaigns, I've received more flyers at home from the Neely campaign than I have from Weaver. And a little hard to say about signs. Maybe there's a slight advantage for me, but as I drive around town, look for signs, it might be a little bit of an advantage, but at least a Neely sign, whether it's Cynthia or Sheldon, I'm not sure half the time, but it could be a slight advantage there. So again, there's a number of things Neely can play on that would give him a chance to win. On the other hand, Carrie Weaver herself has certainly got a lot going for her as well in this kind of competition. And there's a number of reasons why she could pull this thing off as well. First of all, this is an anti-incumbent time. People are angry at the system, whether it's the president or the senators or the governor or anybody else. And as the incumbent, Neely takes the blame for whatever you're angry about. And as a challenger, Weaver can certainly play very much on the anti-incumbent feeling. That may hurt me. Being an incumbent's got advantages, but it's also got some big disadvantages, and that can hurt me in some ways. And I think Weaver has been able to play on that, and several of her flyers that I've seen have made a point of that kind of thing. One issue that popped up, and I'm not sure, we talked about it briefly last time, I think after the discussion, is the issue of Sheldon Neely's Saginaw Valley degree. We've had kind of a 1 day or 2 day story for a little while. I got a couple of very angry emails on myself for this village. Bottom line was this, is that apparently, at least more than apparently, I guess, in a number of formal listings, Sheldon Neely indicated he had earned a bachelor's degree from Saginaw Valley. That was not the case. He apparently studied there for some time. I'm not quite sure how long. I heard various versions of that, but did not earn a degree. And then again, there was a bit of a dust up for a few days earlier in the campaign. And I say I got some very hard-edged anti-Neely emails on that, claiming that he was a liar and all that kind of thing. Again, I don't know how it's going to play. In some ways, to see a politician boosting his resume is not exactly a surprise in some way. I see anybody boosting their resume is not a surprise, I suppose. What struck me is that probably if I had, from my point of view, he might have handled it differently. He blamed it on his staffer. I have a hunch it might have been just almost more beneficial to him to say, you know what, I screwed up. I shouldn't have done it. It might have come across a bit more honest. I'm not sure it was a staffer, but that's the way it came off. Like I say, at this point, I haven't heard much about it for almost a month. So I don't know how it's going to hurt him, but it's there. And I have no doubt that for those who are going to work against me, it's going to be mentioned somewhere along the way. So again, that'll be a kind of a curious little issue that popped up. Weaver herself is a personality, a very strong campaigner. She comes across very well personally and has made a lot of good personal appearances that have worked well for her campaign. And then there was one debate, at least one debate we had at the Mock Park for the primary with all the three candidates there. And Weaver came off very well in that debate, very, very well organized and articulate and so forth. So a strong debater in that sense as well. And Weaver may also gain by being the former mayor rather than the incumbent. Now she can say, well, I got the experience, but you can't blame me for what's going on right now. That kind of a double plus in some ways. So I suspect we'll hear from that as well. And I think again, to go back to some of the issues, there's still frustration with the water issue. The pipes are still not quite all replaced. A lot of grumbling about, gee, why isn't that all done yet? So I think we're going to hear about that. And then one last thing here, in terms of a primary election. So very often a primary can give you a decent picture of how people are going to do in the general. What happened in the primary was this: Sheldon Neely got 49% of the vote, Weaver got 40%, Eric Mays got 11%. Now, if Sheldon had gotten 50, 52, 55% of the vote, we could probably have said game over, it's done deal, he's going to win in November. 49%. Now, the other, 51%, well, went 40 for Weaver, 11 for Mays. Now, of course, Mays is not here for the November election, but where do the Mays votes go? You've got to guess those are heavily anti-incumbent votes. If they vote, again, it's kind of a toss-up. Sheldon is just on the line for being able to claim victory, but not quite there. And if all those Maine's votes go to Weaver, which is certainly a plausible assumption, that could give her the working margin. Like I say, the last time around, Neely won by 205 votes in the whole city. So, as I say, kind of a curious primary that showed how close this race, I suspect, could be in some ways. So, as I say, a big competitive race, all things considered. And how it comes out, again, I'm kind of hesitant to make any kind of prediction. As I said, I think there's an anti-incumbent flavor in the air that may help Weaver a bit. It's going to be close, and I'm not quite sure who's going to pull that one out. But that's going to be, I think, the top race to watch locally in some ways. Second area I want to mention here is, of course, we got 9 county commissioners up. Dominique over here is one of them. And I'm not going to walk you through the whole list of shopping list of names. I did have some East Village magazines. I didn't have quite as many as last week. So if you didn't get one last week, I got a few around. All the county commission races are listed there. Couple of things worth mentioning there. Again, the county commission does have a substantial Democratic majority with some of the new districts. And there, of course, with all the one thing about this election is everybody is running in the new districts to some degree. You're going to see a reshuffling of some of the names and maybe some of the parties and some of the out county areas. Republicans may have a little more chance to pick up a seat or so than they have in the past. But my hunch is you're still going to see a solid Democratic majority in the county commission, whatever happens in the individual races. And there'll be a number of new faces there as well. One issue worth watching there, and I don't know how they play out, is the whole issue for the county clerk and John Gleason, who just announced his retirements recently, and all the turmoil over Gleason and the election issues around Genesee County. That certainly has got to be a hot issue for the county, and who replaces Gleason and where we go from here remains to be seen. But I think beyond that, like I said, beyond the new districts, I think that's kind of the key issue to watch. And like I said, the list of the names and all the 9 different races, the list is in my column in the East Village magazine. Now, let me turn to the kind of a bigger, at least 3 big issues that are also on the ballot, with 3 major statewide proposals that we're facing this time around. Some of them are kind of odd. One of them is a big hot button issue, or one of the biggest hot button issues in the nation in many parts. So let me take them in order, say a few words about each one. And again, for each one, I'll leave plenty of time for questions because there are a lot of details in many of these things. Proposal 1 weaves together 2 different things. What it would do, would change Michigan term limits and require financial disclosure of elected officials. Many people, frankly, including myself, feel that probably should have had 2 proposals. These things are really not terribly related. They're rather separate issues, but they're rolled together in proposal 1. And here are the details of the 2 aspects of proposal 1. The term limits are this. Right now, in Lansing, with their term limit law passed almost 30 years ago by now, you can serve 6 years in the House, 3 2-year terms, or 2 or 8 years, 2 terms in the state Senate, for a combination of 14 years. But if this proposal passes, it would change that and allow a newly elected lawmaker to serve 12 years, either in the House, in the Senate, I presume any combination of the 2. The logic behind this is that, well, it would allow somebody to have more experience. Because right now what happens if you're elected to the House, let's say, well, your first job, you go there for the first year, you're learning where the job, you're learning your job, you're learning where the restrooms are, you're learning where your office is. The second term, assuming you get one, you do the job. And then the third term, you're looking for a new job, whether you're running for the state Senate or something else down the road. So that's often been kind of a criticism of the current arrangement. This would allow people to stay a bit longer, build a little more expertise and a little more seniority in the state House or the state Senate. So again, that's the plus for that in many ways. Although on the other hand, it does reduce the total amount of time. The current arrangement allows you to serve 14 years. This cuts you back to 12. As I say, it's kind of a sidebar issue. It doesn't really touch upon the issue of term limits themselves. I've often been a bit of a skeptic on term limits. I've often thought the best term limits was the polling place, because very often you do have people kind of coming in very quickly and trying to learn the job very quickly. But we always forget that while the elected officials are what I call temporary help, the bureaucracy and the lobbyists, they're the permanent government in many ways. And they're the ones who very often gain power when you have these very tight term limits. So I don't see any prospect in what I've heard lately about getting rid of term limits altogether. But again, this is a modification and maybe a small step in the right direction. I don't know, but a slight modification of term limits.
Not be able to serve.
Let's see here. It's going to give you 6. You have 3 in the house. It gives you 10. No, you probably couldn't. In fact, I served 1, I would guess. As far as I know. And again, I'm not quite sure. I know I had an answer from an earlier forum somewhere. For those current people who are in the middle of some terms now, I'm not sure if there's a grandfather clause or not. So I don't really have a clear answer on that one. But yeah, as I say, from my perspective, it's kind of a shrug of the shoulders. It may be a small slight step in the right direction to give people a little more expertise for those in elected positions, but I don't see it as a dramatic change one way or the other. And by the way, Michigan has had really one of the stricter term limit laws nationwide. We are in a number of states that have these kind of 12 or 14-year limits for elected lawmakers. Anything else on the term limits? The other half of this is the disclosure. Well, Michigan again is rather unique. There's only one other state that we share this dubious distinction with, requiring essentially no disclosure for top-level statewide elected officials. Proposal 1, if it passes, would require some financial disclosure for the governor, secretary of state, attorney general, the lawmakers, of financial assets, outside interests, conflict of interests, investments, similar kind of things. The only catch here, though, is that this isn't going to take effect at best until 2024, and going to require a lot of legislative action to clarify. So there's a lot of details about exactly when things are disclosed, what's disclosed. It's going to be clarified by the legislature. As I say, it's probably a step in the right direction, but the criticism of this often has been that, well, it's really not going to, it might not mean very much. We'll see. But again, it may be better than nothing, which is what we have now. So that's the other half of the proposal. So again, it's kind of an odd proposal, throwing these two things, the term limits and the disclosure together. I've seen no significant polling on that one. I saw one poll on that did give it a slight margin, like a 55% plus rating, a few weeks ago. But that's about it. So I'm not sure what this means going to consider. The second proposal would be what's called promote the vote. In a single phrase, what it would do very briefly is make it easier to vote, really right into the Constitution, a number of things that have been, some of them been used already, some have been talked about, that would basically make voting easier than it has been in the past. And there's a decent list of detailed things, but let me touch upon a few of those that would simplify and sort of clarify the whole voting procedure. First of all, if proposal 2 passes, it would you'd have 9 days of early voting allowed statewide. Secondly, you would have state-funded absentee ballots with state-funded postage and so forth. Third, you'd have guaranteed drop boxes for every 15,000 voters in most municipalities, so that you couldn't have just one drop box for a city of 100,000 people. Next, it would prohibit harassment at the polls. There are laws in the books for this already to some degree, but we've seen more of this kind of thing happening lately. I saw a story last night on some harassment taking place for election workers around the state, and would prohibit, with some penalties, harassment at the polls. It would also allow military ballots to be counted if they are postmarked by election day. That hadn't been the case until now. They had to arrive by election day. So a slight change there for military ballots. And then one issue that is mentioned occasionally when we talk about voter fraud and fake elections and stolen elections and all that, has been the use of private funds to help support elections of one kind, support poll workers, things of that nature. This proposal 2, if it passes, would allow private groups to help fund elections so long as they are disclosed. These aren't funds that favor Democrats and Republicans. They just help support the whole voting process. And there was some controversy about a little of that in 2020. That would allow that disclosure about exactly who's providing those kind of funds. And then finally, at least in terms of the major issues, that only election officials could conduct post-election audits. Again, in a couple of states, there were situations where they pulled in some kind of
Get rid of the machines.
groups to come in and recount votes, and some serious doubts about how well that was done, and even how honestly this was done. So this means you're going to have an audit, going to have a recount. Only certified election officials can do that. They can't bring in, your favorite campaign committee to help do that kind of work. So again, that's where that stands. If it passes, it would streamline the whole voting process and make it open and general. Now,
Neil this morning that said against the vote for voting. He says something about it could allow incarcerated felons to vote in our elections. I read it over pretty carefully, and I saw nothing about that in
I mean, incarcerated felons, if they are found, if they are guilty and incarcerated, could not vote. If once they are released and serve their time, then they can. Yeah, I think I've seen that same line at all. If ex-murderers and rapists can vote, well, yeah, they can do that now after they serve their time. If you're an ex-murderer or rapist or whatever. So it's kind of a sensational line, but it doesn't change anything we don't even have right now. Yeah. And there may be, there are some, I've seen some similar quibbles about that kind of issue. The supporter or opposition to Proposal 2 runs roughly along partisan lines. Generally, Democrats in favor of promote the vote. There is a counter proposal called Secure the Votes that Republicans were pushing. It would have made it somewhat tougher to vote and require tougher ID, all those things of that nature, a little tougher to vote absentee. That didn't make it to the ballot, and they may come back in the future with that, but that was called Secure the Vote. The one was called Promote the Vote. They were opposite proposals, generally supported on one hand by Democrats, on the other hand by Republicans. And that's kind of been true nationwide in terms of whether you're in favor of making voting more open and easier or tighter and tougher and so on. All right, then there's a big one. Here's the big one that's kind of that blows up every commercial around. That's Proposal 3, the whole abortion issue. It's been the dynamite one for every campaign. I think everybody running for Drain Commission was talking about abortion in some way. So here's the brief summary of that, and feel free to go on from there. Proposal 3, if it passes, and again, the proposals do show it leading by a good margin, although it's kind of tightened up a little bit in the last week or two, from what everyone can see. First of all, it was suspended the 1931 abortion law in Michigan that would make basically any abortion a felony. That's the big issue. Now that law is on hold because we're putting court injunctions right now. But any court ruling could change that tomorrow potentially. And so it suspends that, would basically reinstate the basic principles of Roe versus Wade that was overturned earlier in the year with the Dobbs decision from the Supreme Court. Allow abortion until viability. Usually we're talking around 20, 21 weeks or so, I think, in most cases, I believe. With an exception written into law for the mother's physical or mental health. I'm quite quibbling about exactly what that means, but that's one of the little footnotes to that limitation on the abortion law until viability. And been a major campaign issue for Democrats. I'd say every Democrat running for office somewhere has mentioned the abortion issue. It seems the antis generally say it's confusing. Yet most of the legal experts that I've seen have said that, well, basically things you've heard, the parents won't have to be able to have anything to say. At least the majority of legal opinion that I've seen suggests that the right of parents to have a voice in your child's medical decisions of all kinds, abortion or anything else, is going to remain in place. And then there's also regulation. This allows regulation of abortion beyond viability, which is the main key of Roe anyhow. So again, there's some questions there. Almost certainly, if 3 passes, there will be lawsuits, and almost certainly the courts will decide the meaning of some of those terms. And that's not unusual. In fact, I often argue when I talk about either the Michigan or the U.S. Constitution, that you probably can't find a single word in either Constitution. It hasn't been litigated someplace by some court and somebody filing a lawsuit. So the bottom line is, there'll be court tests on this, but the bottom line is that the overall thrust of this is to basically reinstate the principles of Roe Wade that have been there since 1973. The number of valid signatures that proposal three got was better than 750,000, a record number. And you'd think that would kind of guarantee its success, and the early polling suggestions. However, there have been earlier proposals that got a lot of signatures. There was one that came very close to 700,000 some years ago and looked like it was on the way to victory, and it's failed. So just getting a lot of signatures doesn't guarantee that you're going to necessarily turn out the supporters of the polls. As I say, polls show the support is there about, at least I saw one poll at the peak showed almost 2/3 of American, Michigan voters supported Prop 3, maybe a little more than that. The ones I've seen lately in the last couple of weeks, well, it's probably getting down into the upper 50s is the numbers I've seen. So it's fighting a little bit. I think to some degree the anti-campaigns are kind of taking hold. You see a number of anti-Prop 3 signs around town as well. I think a real key there, above and beyond Prop 3 itself on the abortion issue proper. Yeah.
So the one thing that really kind of captured my attention on TV when they talk about the gender change drugs that 10-year-olds can, this will allow that without their parents' permission.
As far as from everything I've seen, it suggests that any medical procedure is going to require a parental consent from current law. And again, at least the majority of legal opinion I have seen on this, I can't swear there's not somebody who's going to argue the other side, but the majority of legal opinions I've seen suggest that there's laws on the books right now that says if you're a parent, you got the right to decide your child's medical issues of all kinds, whether it's having an appendix out, or whether it's going to the dentist or anything else. Yeah, I've seen the same ads. I know what you're talking about. I've seen the same ads. So as far as I know, I don't think that's going to be a big thing. Now, somebody may raise the issue in court and they try and do that, but I don't think it's going to get, from what I've seen so far, I don't think it's going to get far. So let's say, I think the principle I've seen is, let's say, as a parent, you've got a major voice in your child's medical issues of all kinds, abortion or anything else. And that may be the final, the major answer there. But as I say, I've seen the very same ads and the very same claims about that as well.
Can you swing back to Flint and elections here?
Yeah.
Board of Ed.
Yeah, how's our time going? We're getting tight?
I'm just.
Okay. All right. Like I said, I think the key thing about Prop 3 is will it increase turnout? Yes, so the working assumption has been it's going to increase Democratic turnout among suburban women, particularly, who very often tend to vote Republican. We'll see if that happens. On the local issues here, there are a few local proposals, very minor ones I just mentioned, by line mentioned. Flint voters voting on a 2-meal police renewal. Genesee County's got a veteran service proposal on renewal as well on the ballot. And the school boards. Some really big issues. School boards are normally these kind of, I don't know, quiet races where folks who are active in the PTA run for that and decide, what kind of decorations they're going to have for the school prom, I suppose. But they never seem to get that kind of attention. But all of a sudden now, school boards of all kinds have become very contentious and the source of a lot of hot button conflict. Here in Flint especially, the Flint School Board has been the source of all kinds of conflict. You've seen the stories about that, of people attacking each other and people being kicked out of the board meetings and all of the rest. So what's happening there is currently at the moment, there are 15 people running for the Flint School Board. And what's in an attempt to try and bring some stability and some functionality to the Flint School Board, a number of groups have formed panels or lists or slates of candidates. I think in the East Village magazine, there's one list put together by 5 individuals whose main goal, as far as I understand it, is to really provide stability. That's I think their main focus. To provide a functioning school board that can actually meet and get some business done. Similarly, though, I've also seen lists around the county where, to some degree, both parties, Democrats and Republicans, are also got slates of individuals, often putting their own agendas for school boards. And I'm going to include here the Mott board as well, because the Mott board is also on the ballot. There are 7 individuals running for 2 separate sets of terms there for the Mott College Board of Trustees. And again, some groups have put together slates that may be bringing up some of the more controversial issues about critical race theory or sex education or pandemic, how schools handle the pandemic, or whether or not you can ban certain kind of books in the library as well. All of those have become kind of shouting matches in an awful lot of school boards around the nation, not just an issue. So there are some groups as well doing the same thing. So more so than usual, there are groups with perhaps an agenda of one kind or another of putting together a list of candidates they want to run for the school board. And as I say, the same thing may be true for the Vermont board. There's a couple of folk candidates there who seem to be working as a group. There may be a couple of groups really for the Vermont board. And I should also mention, at least that I just became aware of it earlier today, for the Vermont board, I think it is, I should check the exact time here, but I think Monday nights, correct, Tuesday night, November 1st, there's a panel forum for the Vermont board candidates at the Regional Tech Center. I believe it is 7:30. I'm not 100% sure of the time, but it's on Facebook and been posted around town. But I think it's 7:30 on Tuesday night at the Regional Tech Center on the Vermont campus. I believe is a panel, and all as far as I know, all the candidates who are running have been invited there as well. All right, that's kind of a quick one. How's my time? Have got time to mention the State House and State Senate? Or should I, or you want to go quickly? Straight to questions? Okay.
And then, and if people have additional insight, here.
Okay.
Make sure you repeat the question, so people. in Zoom
Oh, yeah.
can hear it. So
Any other questions on anything? Yes.
Well, I don't know if you've got time to do it or not, but I'd like to hear your thoughts about the amount of money that's poured into campaigns, the amount of money being spent about it.
Yeah. And you take a look at the kind of, even in the time that I've been watching, the amount of money you spend for even a state house, state senate, even a school board race is astonishing. And certainly the impact goes in many ways. On one hand, it really discourages folks from running. I mean, if you don't want to spend all your time on fundraising money, you may decide you don't want to run. Matter of fact, I recall a few years back working for a candidate who was, I thought, a very good candidate running for office. But he knew the policy, he knew the issues very well, but he just hated this to get on the phone and start begging people for money. And he was not successful in the end, and he never ran for anything else again. So it discourages people in many ways. On the other hand, I think there's also kind of a diminishing return. If you have, sometimes you raise so much money, you can only buy up so many TV ads. And after a while, there may even be a backlash. After you've seen somebody's ad for the 50th time, how many of those can you change?
It kind of cracked me up a couple years ago. There was a campaign to reduce the amount of money in political spending, but they wanted donations.
Yes, send us a check, let's cover spending, that's right. Exactly. Anything else? Yeah.
You'll be in trouble now, seeing a lot of young stuff. Is he?
Well, for Dan Kilby? Yeah, no, I think that's gonna be a competitive, the most competitive race that probably any Kilby has faced since 1976. Is the way I take it. I would give him the edge right now, from what I say, but I wouldn't want to bet a fortune on it because I think it could be awfully close. You're exactly right. I've seen those Paul Young signs popping up like crazy all over the county in the last couple of weeks. On the plus side, though, I've seen Kilby's ads that I've seen strike me as being really more substantive and really hitting away at some of the hard issues. I've noticed that he's kind of moved away. He still does the abortion issue, but he moved away and talked about more economic stuff as well. And he's got some solid issues there to play with. So logically, he ought to have the edge, but again, it's going to be a tough race, tough swing space.
In addition to that, will there be a debate between Kilby and Young somewhere?
I've heard of no mention of it. I've been looking for it, but I've seen no mention of his name on it. Yeah. There you go. One more.
Just a thought. To me, and I've been in the political arena, or at least paid attention to it for quite a while. But it seems to me that some of the candidates have had new lows.
Well, I think that's
in
true.
their representation or misrepresentation, runs of truth against each other. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, no, I've been trying to agree with you. I mean, the nasty stuff you see. I'll tell you, let me just mention one commercial that strikes me because I happen to know a person casually. It was Sherry Hartman, who's running for the State House down in southeast Genesee County area. The ads about her bankruptcies and debts. As far as I know, I don't know that well. As far as I know, they were caused by some medical bills and medical issues of years past. But really, some pretty nasty ads. I have also heard some commentary though that sometimes those nasty ads can cause a backlash in the other direction and create sympathy for the candidate who's getting beat up. I don't know if it's going to play out that way or not, but yeah, I feel the same way when I look at some of the ads of not only the candidates but just their attitude towards each other, the bitter, almost hatred for each other, or they're calling each other liars and all the rest. It's been pretty nasty campaign.
Well, thank you very much. For your ongoing service and your brilliant knowledge about what's going on in politics. Flint Rotary wants to present you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Okay, there is one thing I heard this morning on CNN that Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked today. I don't know if anybody else has heard that, but they said he's hospitalized and somebody attacked him at his home with a hammer. The news will probably be coming out because I heard it on the way here this morning. Yeah. I want to give a special thanks to the Rotarians that stepped up to serve our club today. Speaker introduction and more with Rob Jewell. Inspirational message with Ashley. Well, Ashley had a meeting. Set up and take down. I think Tom was.
It was a group effort.
All right.
It was a group effort.
Oh, okay, all right, so everyone. The note taker. The name's not down here.
Online.
Oh, okay. Okay, anyway, next week on Friday, November 4th, we will welcome Jennifer Dean and Calvin Carr from the University of Michigan Flint Francis Wilson Thomas Library and Genesee Historical Collection Center. Thank you so much for being here today. As you enjoy your weekend and move through your week, please imagine Rotary, what it means for us, our club, our community, and our world. And we are here.
Oh, you're welcome.